Well, Jack, this week is a unique one for Survivor Analytics because normally I'm the pessimist of the podcast. I'm the one that hops on here and criticizes the episode. I criticize Jeff for his Botox and his $1 million pocket knife. But this week, the roles are reversed. Based on our text conversations, it sounds like you are the one that's lower on this episode than me. So I'll be excited to hear your thoughts. But if you're new, welcome to Survivor Analytics. My name is Clyde. I'm the true expert. I'm here with Jack, who's the voice of the people. Jack, how's it going?
What's up, party people? I'm in a different recording space than normal. I watched this episode on a plane. 60% of the season I've watched on planes. And I think it's making me a little bit more jaded towards the show because I'm not Clyde levels of down on this episode, right? I'm not like, oh, this is a terrible, the state of the game isn't as good as it used to be.
As I wave my cane in the air.
Yeah, these kids today. No, I think it was a very straightforward episode in a lot of ways, which is not bad because I do think it's one of the better episodes of the season. I don't know. I felt like this was the first time that I knew who was going home before Tribal.
Really? I was the polar opposite. I fully expected Ben to go home until the votes were read aloud. But I can give you a couple of quick reasons why this is the best episode of the season, because I don't think it's particularly close. Number one, less Yanu.
Yep.
Number two, no Banu.
Yep.
Number three, Survivor Trivia.
This was a episode for the superfan. It really was.
It's an unnecessary component to the game, and I'm fully willing to admit that. But selfishly, I enjoyed it. I actually made a video like the next day of me listing every Survivor season off the dome for Hunter.
Did you really? That quick?
I'll send it to you. Hunter never responded.
Oh my God.
And then reason number four is we have a surprising ending. I was so sure that Ben was going to go home just the way it was edited. Jeff straight up asked him in Tribal Council what his Survivor journey means to him, which is typically a sign that you're going home.
Yeah.
So overall, I really enjoyed this one. I'm down to hop right into it. Is there a certain tribe you want to start with?
Before we get into the tribes, I just want to throw out that the recap for this, like the previously on for this episode, is almost entirely a inventory of all of the idols and extra votes and lost votes. Because there are so many, 5 episodes in, that we have to spend 2 minutes at the top of the episode just listing them all out for the viewer.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And I'll also throw this detail in there. I watched this episode with 2 of my friends who had never seen Survivor before. And a pro tip to any Survivor superfans, do not introduce your friends that are not fans with the new era. It's way too complicated. And I felt like I spent so much of the episode explaining to them these different gimmicks, like what's an immunity item?
Right.
What's a journey? Wait, who has a vote? Wait, who lost their vote? It's a lot going on, and it's not their fault. I totally understand it from their perspective that it's too many gimmicks at once. So you should always start with an earlier season for new viewers, which is why we started with Samoa.
He said journey like it was as much a part of the game as tribal or challenges.
Yeah, and that's kind of disappointing to me.
It made me sad, too. Do you want to run through Yanu real quick? Because they're not featured very much, and I think it's better to get them out of the way.
Yeah, I'm down. Big highlight early from Yanu is that it looks like Q is about to quit the game. And I bought this at first.
Yeah, me too.
Q took the losses in the immunity challenges so personally earlier in the season to the point where I thought he would consider quitting. He tells this to Kenzie, and then it's revealed later that he was lying. I don't know if I really follow the thought process.
I totally followed the thought process. I think it's a great move, actually, because what Q's doing is lulling her into a sense of security, right? He wants Kenzie to, if they lose again, he wants Kenzie to be so certain that she and Tiff and Q maybe are writing his name down that when he blindsides her, she won't play her shot in the dark, right? I liked this move. Obviously, there's a little bit of, there's some details that would need to be ironed out, right?
Yeah.
Would they go to a vote if she thinks, if they go to a vote and she thinks Q's quitting?
Yeah, if I'm Kenzie in that situation and we're at Tribal Council, I would just tell Jeff, hey, let's treat this like another Banu Tribal. Q wants to go home. Do we even need to vote then? And then Q would say, oh, wait, never mind. We should go through with the formality of it all. Plus, I don't think Q tells Tiffany about this plan. So Kenzie could go to Tiffany and tell her Q's thinking about quitting.
Well, but Q goes to Tiffany and says, you and me, let's take Kenzie out, right? Kenzie's a bigger threat down the road. We need to work together.
Yeah, but that's different than saying I'm pretending that I'm quitting.
Yeah, but I think that's enough that if Kenzie goes to Tiffany and says, Q's quitting, Tiffany knows enough to go, I don't think that's true. Like he would have told me.
Okay.
When they get back after voting out Banu in air quotes, we get a couple quotes. We are the worst tribe in Survivor history. They're now at 10 days without food or fire. Like they're having one coconut a day that they're sharing, I think. That's not something you need fire to eat, so I'm not really sure why they're only having one coconut a day.
Well, maybe because they filmed all of these seasons in the same location, so every summer the contestants go and eat all the coconuts.
All the coconuts are picked clean.
Yeah, this was filmed after 45, so there was probably another tribe there just a couple weeks prior depleting the environment of the coconuts.
Yeah, but we get a moment where Kenzie is crying, but it's in the night vision camera, and I wrote down, it was disappointing that we can't tell how blue her eyes are. in the night vision, we're being deprived of that. A couple other things. Their tarp is leaking, and one of them says, what's the point of having a tarp if it leaks? Which I would like to thank whoever on production put a couple holes in the tarp.
Maybe it was Jeff. Maybe he did it with his pocket knife.
I'll throw this out. When we get to the challenge, Jeff is out for Yanu.
Oh.
Jeff's commentary is so anti-Yanu, and I'm here for it, but it's also, we'll get to it. But do you want to go Siga or Nami?
Let's roll with Nami next, where we have this entire idol searching segment. Everybody on the tribe is searching for idols except one player, and that's Liz, who claims, I wrote down the quote, I can't find an idol. I can't even find my shoes.
I really liked that. I did not like her strategy there. It's nonsense to be like, everyone else is blatantly searching. I'm not doing anything, right? But worth noting, the Beware advantage was replaced.
Yeah. Why are we replacing it? If Randon went home with it in his pocket, it should be out of the game entirely. Because I think if Randon was voted out with the Beware advantage, they wouldn't replace it.
Well, if you're voted out with an idol, no, they don't replace the idol. They just have another idol at the merge.
I think they'll replace it in the merge, but I don't think they do that typically in the pre-merge. They just really want someone to get these Beware advantages so they can re-explain all the rules.
Venus sticks to Hunter like glue and really wants to like follow him to the idol. And there's this very, very awkward conversation between them where she calls Hunter her meat shield.
Yeah, to his face.
Like, he doesn't engage. He basically just waits for her to leave.
Why would you tell him that? Like, the term meat shield implies that I want to use you as protection in the short term, but I don't want to go to the end of the game with you. She's basically saying, oh, I'm going to vote you out, but just not now.
I don't like Venus's game. At this point, she doesn't have any allies. She's making alliances. I don't understand what she's trying to accomplish at this point.
Well, she's made it blatantly clear that she wants to flip on Nami at the merge. Like, I think since next week is the mergatory, Venus will be one of the most interesting contestants on the beach because I don't know where she's going to go from here. I don't think she's attended a journey or had any kind of interaction with the other tribes. So she's like a free agent going into that next round.
It also feels like when other people talk to other members of Nami, none of them are going to have anything good to say about her, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's a double-edged sword, right? Because somebody on Siga or Yanu might go, oh, nobody on Nami likes her, we can use her. Or they might go, she hasn't had a single successful social move yet. That's kind of a red flag.
But at the same time, it seems like Nami is more focused on getting rid of Soda over Venus, which I disagree with, but I would not be surprised if Soda ends up being the sacrifice of that tribe.
But so Hunter eventually does find the Beware advantage, and there's a note in it that if they make the merge, there will still be an opportunity for him to acquire the idol or whatever.
Okay.
So yet another fine print. Hey, there's a contingency on this.
And also, with next week being the mergatory, I was right in my prediction earlier on the season where I said this season would not have a tribe swap because of these random Beware advantages.
That's true.
I think that's a bummer. I think the season would have benefited from a tribe swap after like episode 2, once it became obvious that Yanu was on the downward trajectory. But it's fine.
I'll say this. I like an early tribe swap. I don't like a late tribe swap. I feel like after episode 3, I don't like them. If they did a tribe swap in episode 5, 10 days in doing a swap, I feel like the swapee ends up being in a worse position. Like, I feel like in 44, the swap was so late that, like, Josh, the podiatrist, or whatever he was a foot doctor, right?
Well, he was a personal trainer.
Personal trainer, in air quotes. I feel like that when the swaps come too late, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, and that season made the mistake of doing the swap late and attempting to remediate the situation by just giving the contestants idols.
Yeah, that was a mess. But do you want to go to Sega?
Yeah, I'm all down to go to Sega. So
the Vibe Tribe, dude.
The Vibe Tribe. We get some line dancing here, led by Maria.
A little salsa.
What did you think about Charlie's dance moves?
Those hips don't lie. I'll say that. He's boogieing. We basically have some time with the Vibe Tribe. Maria is concerned, or the Charlie's Angels are worried that Charlie is going to switch to Ben. But Charlie says to camera that Maria is, in fact, his number one. What was the historical comparison there?
Malcolm and Denise.
So that dynamic is staying strong. We do get a line from Ben. Anytime you suffer is an opportunity to learn the depths of your mind, which I think was a quote from like a Motley Crue biography or something.
Oh.
Which was kind of weird. That's all I have written down until we meet Tiki Man.
Yeah, the Tiki Man segment feels very unnecessary in this episode, where you have...
I love Tiki Man.
Like, Tim was just talking to the idol. Keep in mind, Tim gets like no screen time on this season, and the one time they put him in front of us, he's talking to the idol. I thought this was foreshadowing Tim going home. And then Tim has an absurd moment where he just clocks Jem.
Whoa. We are moving on too quick from Tiki Man.
Oh, you want to hit more? What else do you have to say about Tiki Man?
Tim hasn't pooped on the island.
Oh, okay.
And so he asks Tiki Man when he's going to poop.
And does this concern you? Are we looking towards a Tim poop-related medical evacuation?
I just really like that Tim's got a little bit of poop madness, and he's talking to Tiki Man.
Well, he's on your fantasy team, right? Am I making that up?
Yeah. No, I think he is.
Had you known about the constipation, would you still have drafted him on your fantasy team? Or is that a deal breaker?
I'm reading this book right now, and it's not in this room where I'd quote from it, but there's a line in it about how even the best men still see the world through their stomachs. And if you have an ulcer, you'll see the world badly no matter how intellectually you try to view the world. Like,
okay.
gut, like gut issues, basically.
It's you are what you eat.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like this is affecting Tim's game, but I like him. I like that he's talking to Tiki Man. And as you started to say, he clocks Jem.
I have no clue how he knew that Jem has the idol, because it seems like he does it purely based on vibes.
Well, it's the Vibe Tribe.
It is the Vibe Tribe, but he's got a 1 out of 5 chance of being correct on this. Like, most of the time when players just operate based on vibes, they're wrong. So This was a great look for Tim. It made me wish we saw a little bit more of him earlier in the season.
Jem denies it, plays the victim. She says she feels like she's on the bottom. And this starts to set a tone for the episode, where Jem's plot from last week has turned into Jem playing too big across the board. From here on out, for the rest of the episode, Jem is constantly taking big swings. I think it's her downfall. I'll say that. I think if Jem played a smaller game in this episode, she would still be on the island.
I think that's fair. I don't understand why Jem was so set on aligning with Ben and Tim, who are clearly on the opposite side.
Well, she's just trying to get the information from them. She's trying to act like she's basically trying to be a double agent.
But what's the value of that information? Let's say she finds out that, throw out a name, Mariah is the target from the minority group.
Yeah.
Her knowing the target is only valuable if that minority alliance has an idol that would negate votes. And she has the idol, so she knows where that is. Like, her real focus should be keeping the majority together as opposed to learning the target of the minority.
Honestly, I think part of it is she tells Maria and Mariah, I'm going to go figure out where their heads are at. And then instead of just hanging out, because that information doesn't actually matter, she goes and starts walking around with the machete. We'll get to all of this later after the challenge. But for now, she's playing too big is what matters.
Yeah. And Tim is psychic, I guess.
Jem's playing too big. Tim is psychic. Maybe the psychicness comes from the lack of, from the constipation.
Oh, yeah. It's like a cost and benefit.
It's like, you know how supposedly if you lose one sense, all of your other senses are heightened?
Oh, yeah.
Like, maybe there's something to it. Do you want to go to the challenge?
Yeah, I'm down for the challenge. I don't care much about the challenge itself, but the slow-mo is dope.
Okay. So just to break it down really quick, not a great challenge in my book. I'll say that. We've seen this exact obstacle course before.
We have?
At least once, if not twice.
We've seen the slingshots. I don't know if it's been the same sequence.
No, I don't think it's been the same sequence, but this obstacle course, like that construction, they reused from, I think, 44.
Probably, yeah.
So basically, obstacle course, get the keys, use the keys to unlock the sandbags. Of course, all the keys have a bunch of knots on them. The sandbags you then use to shoot a slingshot. Couple of notes. Siga sits Ben, Charlie, and Mariah. Nami sits Soda and Liz. And then the only other thing to note ahead of time is everybody has to hit a target because it's 3 people from each tribe. Every member of the tribe has to hit a target, or every competing member has to hit a target, which is great. That's how all of these shooting ones should have been, because it keeps from having the imbalance of a Hunter-dominated run. I like Hunter a lot, but this feels more balanced than the previous challenges we've had in a similar vein. Couple quotes, because Jeff is so down on Yanu, and I wrote down quite a few things from Jeff.
It's great.
If Yanu loses, they will have the most immunity losses of the new era as a tribe, right? That's what it is?
Technically, do you want the fact check here?
Yes, this is Survivor Analytics, please.
So Jeff wasn't fully honest here. Currently, Yanu is tied with Ua from Survivor 41 in terms of immunity challenge losses. So they're already at the top of the list. They're just tied for the number 1 spot. If they lose this, they become the unquestioned number 1. And Jeff intentionally left out that piece of information.
They do remain the worst. They're just tied for worst.
And I think you can make the argument that they are worse than Ua from Survivor 41, just given the strategic decisions by some of the contestants on that tribe.
Well, I don't think I'll watch Survivor 41 until I'm in my 30s. So,
oh yeah, that won't be. That's like very low on the list of like rewatching seasons. Is doing another new era one.
So a couple notes from Jeff, who I think is just trying to motivate Yanu by kind of negging them. We've got pretty early on, Yanu falls behind. Jeff says, dead last, a familiar spot. Oh, and they have to do this hook rope thing to unlock the sandbags that is absolutely ridiculous. But I won't even dwell on it. Yanu is dead last again, which is a common story. Another line from Jeff. At one point in here, Ben says, this is the greatest playoffs of the century. Anybody could win this, including Yanu. Like, there's 3 tribes. And Jeff's talking about Yanu like they're just never going to win.
Well, you missed his best quote.
Oh, did I?
His best one is before the challenge even starts. He says, the last tribe to finish, otherwise known as, and everybody else says,
yes,
the losers. And Jeff points at them and says, I thought they were going to say Yanu.
That was so brutal. I can't believe I didn't write that down.
That was the best one. I can't tell if he's trying to motivate them or if Jeff is just frustrated that production made these incredibly unbalanced tribes and he's just, saying whatever he wants at this point.
I think Jeff is mad that he hasn't gotten to say fire is your life twice. Everyone else in this game is frustrated they haven't eaten or they haven't gone to a vote. Jeff is frustrated that in 11 days, he has only said fire is your life one time.
Yeah, he has his list of survivor-isms that he needs to say per season. He's not hitting his quota.
So to sum up, Nami wins again pretty quickly. And then it becomes Yanu versus Siga for second place. And it comes down to Tim versus Q. It's a rematch of the buoy basketball.
Oh, I forgot it was that same duo in the last challenge.
Oh, yeah. And we get some truly absurd slow motion of the final shot. Like, I wish I'd written down like a shot-by-shot breakdown of this because it's so much slow motion.
It's great. I love this component. I like it when the editors just, have a fun time with these challenges. You probably remember in China, there was one challenge they ran where the contestants had to like throw something and they would play the same clip of that thing going through the air. I forget what it was. It wasn't the Ninja Stars. It was some other...
I know what you're talking about, though. I do remember that.
It was like two balls connected with a piece of string that they were throwing.
Bolo thing. Yeah.
I like it when the editors kind of goof around during the challenges, and the slow-mo was so unnecessary, but so funny. I thought there was a chance that Yanu would miss after the slow-mo segment.
I thought it was going to be a bait and switch. I was actually kind of hoping for it. Q hits the shot. Very emotional time for them. And Q says... Is this what it feels like to win?
Well, they win the challenge, and Jeff does a whole post-game press conference with the Yanu members on what it means to win a challenge. And don't get me wrong, congrats to Yanu, but let's keep in mind they got second place.
They got second, and they're still the worst tribe.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're still tied for worst in the new era. They just didn't break the record.
By contrast, Nami... I would need to go back and look. They might set the record for most first place finishes in the new era. They might be a historically great tribe, but Jeff doesn't give them the time of day at all.
Well, it's because none of them have cursed God for putting him on this island. So, if Soda was a little bit more negative, maybe they'd get some more screen time. But I did write down at this point, there are 30 minutes left in the episode. Here comes a twist. I did predict the journey.
It's a sign that you're becoming a true expert.
I forgot to say, this challenge, immunity, obviously, and a reward of pastries and fruit. So very big deal, especially for Yanu, first real food they've had, and they will get fire for the first time. For once, before they go to the Mergatory.
Yeah, they got fire 1 or 2 days early. So for the journey, the players that were selected are Hunter, Tim, and Q. I have no clue how the tribes allowed this. You're letting the Meat Boys get together.
Here's what I thought was interesting is Nami gets to choose who goes on the journey, and they all agree on Hunter somehow. We don't hear it. And then Nami doesn't seem to care, and they ask for volunteers. And Tim volunteers, and Q, I think they pick Q. I think there is some conferring in Yanu. But yeah, it is a Meat Boy trip. And before we go on the journey, I do have a quote from Charlie as Siga went home, where Charlie does say, as they are facing the first ever Siga tribal, the thing about vibes is they can go from good to bad.
Yeah, he's living up to the Drew expectation for the season. He's the narrator.
I'll say this, his are much better. His little one-liners are much better. He's got another one in Tribal that we'll get to later that I appreciated.
See, I think Charlie's friendlier than Drew, at least in the edit, but I like Drew's comparisons and analogies more. He had a baseball one.
All of Drew's were just a little bit off because he was trying to sound wiser than he was, where I think Charlie's actually come across as believable.
Okay.
I prefer Charlie vastly, but... So we have a Meat Boy journey, and the first thing that happens on the journey is Q proposes a plan for the merge, which I have termed the Meat Boy majority.
Oh, okay.
He proposes that each of them, as the 3 biggest physical threats, brings along one close ally, and that's the final 6. They run with that 6 to the end, and then he says, then the best man... May the best man win. And the others go along with it, right? Who knows how committed they will actually be next week. But they all give up names, which I think is interesting. They don't just say, we'll bring somebody when we get there. They all name names. Tim says Maria. Interesting.
That was really surprising. Out of the 3 names brought up here, the fact
Yep.
that Tim chose Maria was the most shocking, because from Tim's perspective, I thought he was aligned with Ben, who was also on the bottom.
Yep.
Instead, he chooses Maria because they have that parent connection, and he claims that Maria would be valuable because she has an extra vote. She later uses that extra vote in this episode, so I question if Tim is still willing to bring her into that group.
But at the same time, she doesn't use it. Like, Tim was very worried about the gender divide, and Maria has used her extra vote on a woman. So, like, he could still be willing, just not with that extra incentive. But so Tim says Maria. Hunter makes a lot of sense, says Tevin. Great move. And Q says Tiffany, unsurprisingly. What do you think? Will this happen next week? Just a rough prediction?
So it's tough to say. The fact that they included it in the edit makes me think there is some legitimacy here. I would like to see it happen because I found that in many New Era seasons, because they are working in just 26 days, there's less time to actually strategize. So typically when contestants go into the merge, they work with their original tribes because they've just been around those people the longest. So it would be cool to kind of see this melting pot of contestants come together.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, I don't think it would be very entertaining if this group of 6 dominated the season, because they have most of the advantages in the game right now. So like Tiffany has an idol, Hunter is en route to getting an idol, Tevin has an extra vote from episode 1. I don't know if you remember that one.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, that's from the Jelinski card game. He earns that extra vote. And at this point, Maria had an extra vote. So literally all the advantages were concentrated in this one spot. And I don't think there are...
Everything but Gems.
Yeah, everything but Gem. But Gem's gone now. So if this group took control, they would just be beating up on the minority, and that they would have nothing to really combat them with. So
yeah. I think it'll be interesting. I like what you say about the melting pot, because it would be kind of boring to see I mean, the numbers are even again for Siga and Nami now, which puts Yanu in a better spot. But at the same time, do I want to see more of Yanu? No, I don't. I want to see some drama in the other tribes. So we'll see. But one person has the chance to benefit from this journey, and the other 2 go right back home. And they are warned that it is a survivor knowledge test. I was not crazy about this at this point.
Well, why?
I keep going back and forth on how Survivor wants to treat its superfans. Because on the one hand, there's the Carsons. Oh, I'm 3D printing all the puzzles, right? Over preparing because I'm a super fan, and it makes somebody who is just doing Survivor to do Survivor seem ill prepared, right? A super fan seems to have an extra advantage. On the other hand, in this season, we've seen Banu, a super fan who is the worst player I think I've ever seen in my limited experience of Survivor. And so having a Survivor test inside Survivor felt a little, I don't know, like, is this just a show for super fans now?
I kind of had the same vibe. It feels a little bit egotistical for the show to quiz the contestants on itself. And my issue with this is that it kind of deviates from the central goal of Survivor, where if you go back to season 1, the whole idea is that they take 16 random Americans that don't know anything about each other, put them on an island with this voting dynamic, and say, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And once you start quizzing the contestants on the show, it's no longer like this random element in the game where it's just strangers interacting with each other. It almost requires that you have outside knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not outwit, outplay, outlast. It's outprepare.
Yeah. Selfishly, though, I loved it because the second I heard it was a Survivor Trivia Challenge, I was like, damn, if I was out there, I'd be like, I'm going and I'm winning this no matter what. And I would talk trash to Jeff in the camera as I was doing it. Like,
yeah, I mean, so let's get into it. Tim says he's a super fan. Hunter says he's a fan and kind of downplays his fandom. And Hunter decides to do it. The challenge itself is to arrange 20 Survivor logos in chronological order. And before we actually get into it, Hunter, as he gets started, is concerned because when he started watching the show, he didn't watch in order. His college roommate introduced him to the show, and they jumped around, which made me think, I guess I'm Hunter.
Sure. I guess that's the one thing you guys have in common.
We both have beards.
Okay.
And we both got into medical school. That's not true. I didn't get into medical school. But how easy would this challenge have been for you?
Ridiculously easy. We've watched 2 seasons on this podcast that don't have like the number in their name. Could you tell me what season number China or Samoa is?
No. I could tell you that China is from 2007 because we talked about the Olympics a lot. Samoa, I couldn't tell you.
Do you know if Samoa's before or after China?
I think Samoa's before China.
It's actually after. You might remember that Samoa is filmed in HD and China is not. So that's kind of the giveaway there.
I did not remember that. As Hunter is going through, he remembers these seasons. He does know the show.
Yeah, we get some flashbacks as he talks about random events from different seasons.
A lot of flashbacks. I wrote down that this felt like a montage self-promoting the show we're already watching.
Yeah.
It was pretty egregious, the amount of like, oh, in this season that was so-and-so, and Parvati, and Cook Islands, and someone with an Australian accent yelling at the camera.
Australian accent?
It was a woman who was like, I'm nauseous or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, Debbie maybe? But she's not Australian.
I don't know. She had an accent. It just felt Australian to me. But Hunter finishes the challenge. He is happy with his order.
Yeah. And as he was setting up the pieces on the board, I was watching with friends and I was yelling at the TV like, oh, he's already wrong.
Oh, so you could tell.
I ruined the surprise before it was revealed because he got 8 out of 20, I think, correct?
8 out of 20.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you want to know the full order of all 46 seasons, I posted a video of me listing them all in like a minute, I think.
So go look at that on our TikTok.
Yeah, you can go study that for when you go on Survivor, since apparently you need to know Survivor trivia now. With Hunter losing this now, we have a rare occasion of the mysterious double lost vote in Hunter's case.
Okay. This is what I wanted to talk about now because, well, they're going into the Mergatory, so I'm not sure how it's going to work. But Hunter does not have his vote until he retrieves the Beware Advantage. But he has also lost his vote for this journey. Does this mean that he doesn't have his vote for 2 votes?
I'm not sure. Like, the question I have with this is, does he lose his vote from the failed challenge at the next tribal council he attends no matter what? Or does he need to complete the Beware Advantage, earn his vote back, then sacrifice the vote? You know what I mean?
Do they cancel each other out, right?
My thoughts on it now is that no matter what happens with the Beware Advantage, Hunter loses his vote at the next tribal council from losing the trivia game no matter what.
Yeah.
And then after that tribal council, he can earn his vote back by completing the Beware Advantage requirements. So he could vote 2 episodes from now, but not this next one. But it's ridiculous that we even need to have this conversation to begin with.
It is, because the whole thing, the journey, going into the kind of narcissistic, self-promoting challenge, and now into the weird Mario Party double lost vote.
There's a chance that contestants lose their votes at the Mergatory, and I hope Hunter gets the magical triple lost vote next week to see what they do with that.
Actually, if he gets 3, he becomes Jeff. He becomes the host.
But I think he's the second contestant that we've covered now to have the double lost vote. We saw it with Matt Blankenship in 44. I remember that very vividly because he was on my fantasy team and he could not earn me points for the life of him because he could never vote at tribal council.
He did well, though. But so do you want to keep moving?
Yeah, you want to go to Sega before tribal?
I do, because guess what, baby?
What?
It's animal shot time.
Oh, no. I thought we escaped this.
No. We get an animal shot. Bats eating fruit, And then we get to Yanu eating their fruit and eating their food and celebrating their little victory. There's no reason for us to see them. We do not see Nami eating their food.
What's the meaning in comparing the Yanu members to bats? Does that mean anything for the merge?
They're just all getting to eat.
Oh, okay. It could have been any animal eating.
Yes.
This is a very surface level animal shot. This one gets a 2 out of 10 from me.
It's not my best work, but it's been a while since I've had anything even close to this. So
I know. It felt good the last couple months recording the podcast.
Okay, well, let's move on to Sega now, where we enter to make a rock music comparison for Ben, it's not a jam session, it's a gem session.
Oh,
because Gem now has to try to get her idol. They've lost a challenge, and this is an interesting one. She goes and digs up the box, and she has to use the machete to measure the width of their sign, the circumference of their boat, and the circumference of their well, I think.
I think it was the tree mail.
Or the tree mail. And then add 2 of them and multiply the third. And that's the number of machete lengths from the site of the box where the key is. And so she has to dig that many lengths away from the tree. Basically, after walking around the camp with a machete. I liked this.
I liked it. It was a lot of steps. I was concerned that Gem wouldn't be able to complete all of this before Tribal Council. And I think this Beware Advantage in particular has a very clear positive and negative, where on one hand, Gem got to acquire this immunity idol, but on the other, you don't get that much time between the challenge and Tribal. So you're sacrificing valuable hours there where you could be talking to other contestants. And I think part of the reason why Gem gets voted out later in this episode is because she wasn't in a lot of those conversations beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, she does spend so much time running around and doing all this math, and she succeeds. She gets her idol. But as she's doing all of this, we see everybody else is starting their discussions, right? The women start plotting. They want to go for Ben and do a split because with Charlie and the extra vote, they have 5 votes between them. And they want to do a 3-2 split, 3 on Ben, 2 on Tim in case of an idol or a shot in the dark, right?
Yeah.
Charlie wants to keep Ben, but that's where the tone is kind of set. And I think Gem comes into this and feels like she hasn't contributed and decides to just start talking to everybody, especially Ben and Tim. And this is where we get the whole walking around with the machete.
She corners Ben to figure out who he's voting against. I think this is an instance where Gem got a bit of a confidence boost after finding the idol, and she felt like she could play more aggressively with that advantage in her pocket. But you can't let those things get to your head. You kind of need to continue to play a little bit more subtly and under the radar, even if you are more powerful in the game.
So when she goes to talk to Ben, she still has the machete. And so Ben grabs the hammer just so that they both have a weapon.
They're kind of eyeing each other up with their own weapons.
Yeah, there's this weird undercurrent of weapons and violence to it. I wrote down this line that I think is after Gem goes and talks to both Ben and Tim. They talk and say that they need to go after Gem instead. Ben says, "Chaos energy is not my energy." I don't know about that one. Ben seems a little chaotic. He says earlier in the episode something about how he once had to spend a summer driving around in a van, spending $3 a day at Taco Bell to eat.
Oh, yeah. That was a random detail in the episode. I think he's personally chaotic, but I don't see that chaos in his gameplay. It sounds like Ben identifies the people who he trusts, and he just wants to work with them. And he doesn't really bother, building those relationships strategically with those contestants who he has no intention of working with.
Right.
But at the core of this tribe, we have Charlie and Maria, where they're in the power seat. They can either align with the men and vote out Gem, or they can align with the women in voting out Ben. Not easy having those two names that kind of rhyme with each other a little bit too.
Jem and Ben.
Jem, Ben, and
Maria and
Mariah. Let's just up the difficulty as much as possible with this group.
Jem, Ben, and Tim, Maria, Mariah, and Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going into Tribal, I was under the impression that Ben was going home because Ben does not have his vote. So really Maria is the true power player here, where if she votes with the women, that's 3 votes against Ben, and there's nothing Charlie can do at that point. Ben would go home no matter what he attempts.
Right.
Now, I thought there was really no reason for her to even play the extra vote this week, and she later decides to use it. Like, what do you think Maria's thought process was in first going with Charlie and aligning with the men, and then using that extra vote in the process?
I mean, she seemed willing to use it from the get-go. Like, it seemed like from the very initial plan of the 3-2 Ben-Tim split, that's assuming she's using her extra vote, right? And she never expresses any hesitation about using it or a desire to save it. Maybe she's worried that it won't carry over to the Mergatory or something like that. Like, I wonder if there's some logistical reason she felt like she had to use it this episode because it didn't feel needed.
I think it might be threat level management, because at the end of the day, an extra vote is powerful, but it's not to the level of like an idol, right?
Right.
So Maria knows that the other tribes will be aware of her extra vote because Tevin went back to Nami and Jelinski went back to Yanu. Like, the chances of all 3 of them keeping that information secret is pretty low. So Maria might just think, I'm going to use this to flush it out of the game. No one will perceive me as a threat because the benefit of holding on to this advantage is outweighed by the magnified threat level at the merge.
Yeah.
In terms of her aligning with the men, I wonder if Tim came back from the journey and told her about that 6-person alliance.
That feels like too big of a detail to not make the edit.
Well, that's the only reason that I can think of for Maria casting this vote, because let's say she goes with her original plan and she votes out Ben at that tribal council. That's going to burn a bridge with Tim, which will break up her spot in that 6-person group at the merge.
Here's what I'll throw out. I think part of her consciousness here is that I think she recognizes how big of a game Jem is playing here, right? She doesn't know that Jem has the idol, but she knows that Jem is doing a lot of talking. And I think there's a concern that between these people, right, Jem could do a lot of talking and put the target on Maria. If Ben does a lot of talking in the merge or the mergatory, if Ben does a lot of talking, that target stays on Ben. Ben is not a meat shield. Ben is a friendly shield, where Jem is a ally, right? And so I think there's an element of that where by keeping Ben, she keeps her number 1 in Charlie happy. She keeps Tim happy potentially down the line for that meat boy majority. Jem isn't bringing anything like that to the table, right? Jem is just an ally who is talking way too much and making enemies.
I guess my big concern there is it's still early in the game, but
yeah,
Charlie seems like a very competent player. And
yeah,
I'm scared of giving him a lot of options in the merge, where now it seems like, Maria is Charlie's number 1, but he's got a number 2 right now in Ben.
And she doesn't.
And Maria doesn't. So when the time comes and the 2 of them will inevitably decide to flip on each other, Charlie has somebody to help him in that flip, and Maria won't have the same options. So
yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So I guess we're in Tribal now.
Yeah, we talked about the vote a lot. But are there any things from Tribal that you want to mention?
I've got some things to note.
Okay.
we learned that although the Vibe Tribe does pretty much everything together, they do not aquadump together, perhaps because of Tim, but
because he would not be included.
Yeah, he's just swimming. He's not, he's just there. Mariah goes out of her way to make that very clear. We get a great line from Charlie where he says, "It's not just smoke. There's a whole lot of fire around here," which I really liked. And I think everybody on Sega does a great job of talking like a Survivor player should at Tribal. After so many episodes of poor Tribal conversation from Banu, it was really nice to have this actual diplomatic talk from players. Jem asks if she can write Jeff's name down, and he declares, "I'm here forever."
Yeah, and honestly, I believe him.
I believe him too. And then finally, Ben declares that he plans to get a Sega tattoo.
That's very on brand for him. Yeah, I don't have much else. I wrote down the same quote about Jeff stating that he'll be there forever. But your final vote here is 4 votes on Jem, 2 on Ben. Maria plays the extra vote, like we mentioned earlier. Jem goes home, no epitaph for her. Those don't start next week either, because we're not at the merge. They start the merge, not the mergatory.
The mayor of Ponderosa is the first one.
Yeah, if you don't make it to the jury, you don't get an epitaph. But I will say, I enjoyed Jem's presence on this season. The edit had me fooled. I thought she was a legit contender to win. I made a video last week talking about like my tier list of the remaining contenders and how likely they are to win the whole thing. Yeah. And I had Jem in the second highest tier. So the edit fooled me. So it was entertaining to see her go. I think there's a chance Jem comes back.
I'd love for Jem to come back. I mean, I think her game was fun. The tree digging up, we find out in this tribal, they spent 3 days digging up that tree.
Yeah.
That's great. Like, it's so chaotic. It's so out of the box. Like, sometimes on Survivor, things get really, like, people play it safe in a lot of ways, right? You might make a big social move, but you're not doing something crazy around camp. Like, not to the same level, but this had a little bit of Russell Hantz sock burning energy.
Yeah.
It's just putting some chaos into the universe just to do it, which I appreciate. I think if she had stopped with that, right, and retreated and played small again, she would still be here. Like, I don't think that if Jem finds her idol and then sits back and lets Maria and Charlie take the lead, I think if she had just said, "All right, I'm going to go get firewood. You guys decide who we're going to vote out," she'd still be here. Yeah, I liked her. I'll miss her.
Yeah, same. And she'll have an interesting storyline on a return where I feel like there are a few other new era contestants that can say, the first time I played, like, I did too much. I was too aggressive. And this time I want to play a more under the radar game. Like, Jem is in that unique group. I would still argue that Banu has a better chance at coming back than Jem.
Oh, man.
I think Banu's still in the number 1 spot right now in terms of the contestants voted out.
I hope you're wrong, but you might not be. I think there's a big gulf between these two and the other two.
Oh, yeah. Well, the other 3, Jess, Randon, and Jelinski.
Oh, gosh, I forgot about Randon. Oops.
Yeah, your winner pick. Your first winner pick for the season.
My first winner pick. Do you want to go to winners and losers?
Yeah, where do you want to start?
I feel like we've done a lot of losers lately. Who's your winner?
So, winner this week goes to the player who I think is now playing the best game on the entire island, and that's Charlie. I thought this was a very impressive week for Charlie, where he was able to preserve his ally in Ben, and now he goes into the merge with Maria as his number 1, Ben as his 1B. He's a part of a tribe that has 5 contestants, and I get the vibe that Sega is a more united group than Nami. Like, the only player I could see flipping from Sega is Mariah, who was left out of this vote.
But even still, I mean, she's been very passive in her strategic play. I could see her sticking around just to stick around.
I think that's a legit possibility. And like Nami, by contrast, they're already eyeing up Soda as a target. Venus wants to flip away from that group. Liz doesn't want to do anything around camp, including searching for idols.
She can't find her shoes.
So I have more confidence in Sega taking control of the game, and it looks like Charlie is at the heart of that tribe.
I think that's totally fair. My winner pick is a little bit conditional.
Oh, it's a predictive winner pick.
It's a predictive winner pick.
We did that last week with Jem, and we were both wrong.
Yeah. Well, so let's see if this bucks that trend. If the Meat Boy majority comes together, Q is my winner because I like that tactic. I actually, he didn't fully think it out, but his bluff with Kenzie, I liked. We see him talking a lot in the next time on, which is a mixed bag, and he won a challenge. So he got a little bit of a hero's arc, a little hero's journey in this season so far of losing, and finally winning. So shout out to Q for that.
Yeah, he won the challenge in slow motion, which was fun. And when he goes on the journey, he says something along the lines of, I'm so excited to go on this journey and just throw out.
Yes.
He knew the second he stepped on that beach that he was there for the guys.
I mean, I'm kind of here for it. I love a Meat Boy. They're my favorite archetype by far.
And who knows, this could be the season where a Meat Boy wins. Like, if that group takes control, I could totally see a world where, like, Q or Hunter goes on an immunity win streak at the very end to pull out the win. So, going out to losers, my loser is Mariah.
Same.
She was left out of the consensus plan, and she's kind of on the bottom of Siga. We'll see if she's willing to flip over to another tribe, but I think I agree with what you said earlier, in that I think it's more likely that she sticks with this group where she's not positioned very well.
Yeah, and she says this a little bit in she was my loser as well. She says in confessional pretty early on that she's a very introverted person and that this is going to be a big personal challenge for her to play the social game. And she does have relationships in Siga. She just wasn't on the inside of this one. And I don't see her going back to square one. I see her sticking close to her tribe and just being on the bottom, at least for another week. But that might be all it takes. So, yeah.
Who's your honorable?
My honorable mention, Clyde, is you.
What? What did I do?
Because in honor of Hunter, who became a fan of the show, who ends up on the show, and he's one of my favorite players on this season, because his college roommate got him into Survivor, I couldn't not give you the honorable mention because I wouldn't be here without you. So you get my honorable mention this week.
Oh, wow. I'm honored. Thank you, Jack. I'll also say that the fact that Hunter didn't know all the seasons was surprising since he built all the challenges. Like, he had hints of super fandom in him.
His reason for not knowing them was the exact same reason I would have, which is he saw them in a compelling order, not a chronological order. So it's exactly what we're doing here is how he has experienced the show.
Yep. Well, some behind the scenes, when we first started the podcast, I considered starting with season 1 with you.
I'm so glad we didn't. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't think I would have enjoyed it.
Well, I think you'll enjoy it way less now after seeing some more complex seasons. It's almost better to start the bar a little bit lower where players are just like, wait, we should form alliances. Because now you go back and see that, and it's like, of course you should form alliances.
Well, here's what's going to happen is in 20 years, somebody is going to start Survivor Analytics, and they're going to listen to Survivor Analytics in order of Survivor seasons. And so they will go 1 to 70 on Survivor Analytics and be like, what are these guys talking about?
Yeah, it will be a very confusing listen too, because we reference our past seasons during these.
Yeah, we assume some fandom of Survivor Analytics. So shout out to the Survivor Analytics super fans out there. But who's your dishonorable mention?
My dishonorable goes to Maria.
Me. Oh, Maria.
You for not knowing the order.
Well, why Maria? Did you not like this pick?
I think she made the wrong move in voting out Jem over Ben. I also don't like that she used the extra vote there.
Yeah.
And with that said, I'm sticking with Tiffany as my season-long winner pick since I picked her preseason. But if I was allowed to change and if Tiffany gets voted out, I will still be switching over to Maria because she was compared to a past Survivor winner.
Mm-hmm.
And similar to Maria, that Survivor winner who she was compared to kind of gets outplayed by her number one ally. But then she's able to just gather support at the very end to vote out her ally right before the final tribal council. So I would not be surprised if Maria has a similar arc where she's in the majority, she's playing a good game, and then Charlie loses final immunity. She knocks out Charlie and wins the game because, she played solid, but it wasn't as dominant because Charlie's already getting those one-ups over her this early.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Well, next time, Merchatory.
Yeah,
Drop
big
your
week.
buffs.
I'm excited for it. It's weird getting prepared for the Merchatory because I feel like so much of it is dependent on that challenge where half the cast is immune and the other half is vulnerable. Yeah. Like, it will be a really interesting vote if players like Soda and Venus and Mariah all end up becoming immune at the Mergatory, because I feel like those are the three most likely boots right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think and Kenzie, I think, is probably in a lot of danger because Banu has blown up Kenzie's spot so much that I think for the other two tribes, if it comes down to hey, we both have 5 members, Kenzie is an easy common ground for both Nami and Siga.
So you think it'll be a non-Meat Boy next week? Because this is the prime Meat Boy elimination round, is Mergatory early merge.
I mean, I'm not trying to lock in any predictions, but I think Kenzie should be on that list next to Venus, Soda, and Mariah. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, catch us next week. We'll cover the merge. Mergatory. Ha ha.